Saturday. Christmas comes early.
Unbelievable! Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone!
Chargers.
It's a touchdown!
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic!
Live in primetime.
Wow!
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans.
They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Back at it with another Keeping Current with Kansas City. This is Thad Bell from the Kansas City Soccer Journal. With me, I have Daniel Sperry from the Kansas City Star. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. Peachy keen on this lovely Tuesday.
Let's say we've seen each other a few times over the last week or two.
Yeah, I think it's been like 3 days in the last week. This is that time of the year. It's going to be very busy for the next few weeks, beyond this one, and even into the next couple weeks after. So, got a lot going on between both teams.
Yeah, I think there was like a week span there where I saw you as much as I did any of my family.
Yep. Sounds about right.
All right. So, Kansas City Current went down to Houston, got a draw.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult to watch live because I know we were both at the sporting game, but I know you were probably keeping better track of it than I was because I was shooting the game. But I went back and watched a good chunk of the game, highlights, big, large chunks of it so I could get general feels for it. What did you take out of that game?
That the Current are a really good team, that their story for the regular season of 2023 is going to have been written months ago. And I think that's the problem. That was a game that they needed to win. And I think while, there's still obviously a path to the postseason, they're not completely eliminated yet. Not winning that game after playing in the fashion that they did for that game hurts. They were the better team by a mile in the first half. They played Houston off the field. For the majority of their matchups with Houston, they played them off the field. And really, even after Houston scored the goal to tie it up, the Current were still, I think, the better team through the end of the match. And it's one of those where certain times, you can sit there and you can blame players. I think maybe somebody could have closed her down a little bit sooner, but Michelle Alozier, I'm sorry if I butchered her name. I know she's got a good name and I probably butchered it totally. So accept that. Throw whatever heat at me you want. But she's a darn good player, and it was a darn good finish with the outside of her foot to the outside post and beat 80 French. AD France has been in great form. That's almost an unstoppable shot. She maybe had a little bit too much time for my liking, but ultimately, like, those things are going to happen. But with the amount of chances that they had in the first half, they have to finish. Jane Campbell's a very good goalkeeper, but I think they made her look a little bit better in some certain situations with the placement of shots. And I just think that, you know, they can't afford a draw anymore in the matches that they play because of the way things went earlier on in the year. And if you are, let's say they had picked up, I don't know, 4 to 6 more points than they have right now earlier on in the season, then maybe I'm looking at this team and that draw is much more excusable. And I don't say it's inexcusable to draw, but I think in the grand scheme of where they need to be at, that draw almost hurts in a way. Despite having
Definitely
a really
hurts.
good performance, it hurts. But despite having a very, very good performance. So I think that's the hard part there. I think some of the things in front of them in the table have been happening. But I think it places a much greater importance on this matchup with Angel City than there was a week ago this time, looking at this matchup. And so I think, yeah, a little bit disappointing that they ended up with the draw. I think, we were watching a sporting game, and of course in person and on my computer there, once Sporting I think was up for a while there, they were a little bit dominant over San Jose and was able to really dive in. The first 10-15 minutes of the Sporting match were just wild, almost end to end for a little bit. So it's kind of hard to take my eyes off and pay attention to the computer there. But once the Sporting game slowed down, I was watching them, and I could see that they were getting some shots earlier, but the chances just kept getting better and better and better. And, Jane Campbell made a couple of really good saves, but like I said, man, I think it's 2 points left on the field that night with their finishing in the first half. They probably should have won that game. Give credit to where it's due to Lozier for her goal, but that should have been a game that should have been a 3-1 or 4-1 scoreline.
Yeah, that's one of the issues was definitely Jane Campbell was better than the Kansas City attack at that point.
Mm-hmm.
With the first goal for Lowe, I think, for the season in regular season play from the field. So they were missing Dabinia because of COVID protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, had some chances, but no. I think probably one of the problems, and I asked Coach Huer Bloom,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm getting closer to eventually going to say that right one day. Asked her about that. I asked specifically, you were a better team in the first half for sure. Second half was much more even. I said, what was the difference? And she said, the heat and humidity. We withered, not the exact word, but something along that line. And I think that did play a role into it. And with so many injuries, so many players out, or sick, they just didn't have a lot of difference makers to bring on that could contribute at the end, because they had to have them on the field to begin with. So you had to have Hamilton and Mace and Kaiser, Cooper.
And there's no one else there to bring off the bench. You're right. And Mimi's there, but Mimi has not been the player that we thought she was going to be. And
the rest were basically midfielders or defenders who, not very offensive midfielders.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing they could have done maybe is brought on a Jenna and push push Lowe up a little bit further. But I like you said, there's not much that was going to change the way the offense was going outside of it. So I get that too. But yeah, it's in a vacuum, it's a solid 1-1 draw, and you're happy with a road point, you move on. But in the greater scheme of things, it hurts a lot for their playoff push.
I think after the Challenge Cup group play, we had talked, and we'd basically come down to they needed 4 wins and 2 draws, or 5 wins and a draw or a loss.
Yeah.
It's kind of either, we don't really know until some things shake out for that. They got one of the draws that they might be able to get away with against a team, but one of the worst parts about it is it's a team right above them in the standings, so they didn't even really get a chance to move up, or a lot of teams drew that same weekend, so they didn't lose a lot of ground.
No, it's kind of, which is annoying because if they win, they gain ground. They're within touching distance of the playoff line versus still being 2 games worth of points out.
And the very odd thing is that was their first draw in regulation play for 2023
and
NWSL
only their second total period. Yeah. They've had 2 draws this entire season. They were in the month of August.
It's just, it's a little bit weird. They're either pretty good or kind of not good. I mean, they're not. That was just really very prophetic there, wasn't it? They've been pretty good and got the wins, or they have struggled and got the loss. They haven't been able to do a lot of pull out a game when they weren't at their best.
Yeah. And that was the hallmark of that 13 match unbeaten run last year. Was there were games where they didn't look great, but they were able to grit out a draw. A couple of games that I look at, for one, if you're looking at games that could have been a little different, I mean, one that sticks out to me is that game against the Spirit. They were up 2-0 at one point. They had to sub off, the spine of the team at that point, which was Gautreau and Ball, and they didn't really have adequate replacements for them, and they end up losing that game late 3-2. Some poor set piece defending late in the match twice got them, and it's just that's a game where, okay, fine, maybe you drop from being 2-0 up, maybe you drop to 2-2, but you can't let it go to 3-2. And I know it sounds so simple, but those types of games have happened all too often. Think of the game against San Diego too. They hosted San Diego, and they probably could have won that match for how they played for a majority of it. And instead they shipped into soft goals on the other end. So the defense hasn't been there earlier on in the year for their margin of error to allow them to kind of scrap a goal and keep that game level when they weren't playing as well. But that was that hallmark of that run last year, was just they seemed to be able to not play well and still get a point out of it. And this team just hasn't been able to do it.
Yeah, last season they were quite often the worst team by far for 75, 80 minutes. And then Hamilton, Mace, a couple others would do a little bit of magic, and they would score a goal or two or earn a penalty, and Lowe would bury it, and they would get the draw or the win. So
yeah,
that was a big hope for me when Hammy came back, was that they would start to do that a little bit better, because she's probably I don't want to say the grittiest player, but she's the one that you can kind of, I don't even say count on, but if you're going to bet on one player to just kind of pull a goal out of nowhere, I would probably say it would be her more so than even Dabinia.
Yeah. And last year they were really good on dead ball plays, not just the penalty kicks, but set pieces. They were very dangerous for a large portion of the season. They've not scored on very many set pieces this year. And I just think part of the grit thing too, just in general, in all, they have not been as gritty defensively. And I think that's just kind of led to what led to the beginning of the year and what we saw at the beginning of the year, and how much that has hurt who they are now, it's amazing how the stories for both the men's and women's side in this team parallel each other in such strong ways.
Yeah. And again, without going back and covering it all, which I'm sure we'll have a kind of a end of year wrap up when we talk about this, but so many injuries at the beginning of the year. No Desi, no Loetta. I mean, she was there for a little bit, then gone. No Hammy. Just so many of those players that you would count on that was so good last year, and then none of the new signings. Yeah. E-ball, because both her and Loera started and then were out injured, and then it's just been a struggle. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep playing. But on the positive side, they're probably going to have one of their best availability reports that they've had in a while.
Yeah.
Dabinia back off COVID protocol. I'm guessing Lavoisier will be available this weekend since she was full training.
There's for sure a possibility for this week. If she's in full training, I think there's a possibility that she is in there. But because she was on season-ending injury list, she has to be activated.
Right.
There's going to be some interesting maths that will have to take place for Lavoisier to get activated, but I think within the next week or two, probably, for her to be activated.
Yeah, I
For
mean,
sure.
and she's been in full training longer than just this week, so
Correct.
but she is physically ready to at least be in a game day squad.
Yep, 100%.
Let's see, we said Dabinia back. DiBernardo and Gloss were both in training, but as non-contact. So that's a good.
It's a good thing for DiBernardo, just for the sake of what her injury was, being a concussion. If you're being allowed even into training again, you are somewhere nearing the end, coming out of your concussion protocol. Hana, different thing. I think she's going to have to get into full contact before she comes back. But it's a much nearer return for Miss Vanessa DiBernardo, I think, in that case.
Correct. And even though it was no contact, you're playing in a scrimmage, a ball at any time can hit you in the head. So, I mean, there has to be assumption of that you're at a decent point at that point.
Yep.
No update on Morgan Gautreau. They didn't have anything other than she was on a excused absence. And when I tried to clarify, they said that's all they could say. So, but at least they are getting more players back. The 2 new defenders will be available. I don't think Lauren will be in because she just got her first training today on Tuesday. So I'd be very surprised.
They told us in the press conference that she is not trained for 2 weeks because she had wisdom teeth surgery.
Right.
So,
yeah. And between her and Stina, though, it'll be interesting to see which players they put in or put on the bench in the next game or two. I got to see them in practice a little bit this morning. I thought Stina looked really good. And it was fun watching a couple of battles between her and Dabinia. So that was a good matchup. And it was pretty much a stalemate almost. Yeah. Lauren, I did not think looked as good this morning in practice. But again, if she hasn't practiced for 2 weeks and coming into a new environment, when I say she didn't look as good, it was she didn't really know exactly where she needed to be and things like that. So
she's learning.
Yeah. No, it's this is not saying she won't be really good. It's just being honest to what I saw today. So would you were at the presser, getting a good impression from Lauren?
This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
I think she is smart. You can kind of see it just in the way that she carried herself in responses and answer. I know it was kind of via a translator, but she seemed to respond to the questions as they were being translated back to us, but the response to our questions was relatively long-winded and in a way It seemed like she was doing her best to be very honest about her answers. It reminds me of in a way of when Alan Pulido first came in, and from everything that I've been told about his Spanish, like when he speaks in Spanish, he's very thoughtful and very smart and very eloquent when he speaks, and he comes across very well. His English is a little tough, but he's been working on it. But I think for a player like that, when going back and forth between the translator and the way they are, you can just kind of tell, because we've had players that we've spoken to through translators before that answer it as minimally as possible, or they don't come across very well. And so the translator's answer is always, especially if it's a long answer, they're trying to do remember everything that the person said and spit it back to you, and so it's not always 100% what was said back to you, but you can just tell in the way she answers the questions that she seems smart. She seems like she's got a good head on her shoulders, and I think it'll be interesting to see on the field how she fits in, because she is, we saw her in the World Cup. She's a good defender. She's very confident on the ball as well. And she's pretty good in the box aerially. So it'll be interesting to see on the field, once she gets comfortable, how she can really fit into that and what that's going to look like. I think much more so, I'm very intrigued about it for next season with her, especially just because I think given time for her to continue to make strides in the offseason, but also as she's only 20 years old, 21, maybe not even 21 yet. I mean,
she's she'll turn 21 young. Very soon though.
Yeah. But like, she's still incredibly young, still has so much growth ahead of her, hopefully, with the quality that she already possesses. So what do you get with her when she's got a full off season and a group, depending on who is manager for next year? I think she could look really good for quite a few years. So I'm high on her signing in terms of the long term of what she can become. But overall, first impressions, just in like how she carries herself and her conversations, she seems to be a good egg into the mix there.
I don't know a lot of people use that term anymore. Good. She's a good egg. I just got a favorable impression from her in the interview, and she had she seemed thoughtful, a little bit shy almost at times, but yet still answering the questions. But a lot of that's just that she's 20 and probably hasn't faced questions as many times as she will. Yeah. Some of that's getting new to it. I think when we talked with Stina last week, she has been around it a while, I think, and she gets it. Lauren still, despite starting all the games for Brazil at the World Cup, she only had 5 caps with the Brazilian national team going into it. So there was a lot more from her. I'm pretty sure she only had 5 caps going into it, if I remember her looking at it. But she she'll get used to it more so here in the States, just because of the way it's covered here, sometimes a little bit heavier than overseas as well. But she'll be good. Yeah, and probably as a central defender, you don't get pulled in to be asked as many questions as the attackers do. So correct. But she's got experience around the world. She's got a World Cup under her belt, and she's just 20, turning 21, I think, in a week or so. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she should have a good future. Stina, obviously, I think she's ready to just go out and crush people. So I think she might have a chance to make a difference this year already. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Coming up this weekend, Angel City, Friday. I'm sure everybody will turn out for the big media game at halftime, not the actual, NWSL game, but that's a little bit of sarcasm there. All right. Angel City. To see us overweight, out of shape folks try and kick a soccer ball on the field. It's amazing because when you're down there, you really think like, oh, I didn't play that decent. And then you watch it and it's like
a glorified like 5-year-old soccer game out there. It's brutal.
I don't ever want to watch the highlights, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen people like, oh, cut the highlights and put them out there. I'm like, no, don't.
I did cut the highlights just to trash talk Aaron Ladd a little bit, which was good. Mr. Irrelevant, and could post some evidence as to why his draft stock slipped.
Yeah, that's Aaron's a good guy, but he was terrible in that last media game, and I know he'll be out for vengeance. So
he will. I saw him practicing penalties, although he showed us the one that he posted online he missed. So good luck. I am happy to know that though that as we left, I don't know if you saw him, but he had locked his keys in his car. And thankfully, he has finally got out of the Kansas City Current parking lot today.
I did not see that, man. That's cracking me up.
We love Aaron, though.
So he's good at car security as he is at keeping.
I mean, his car was secure. No one was getting inside it, not even him.
Yeah, but that is part of security, is that the right people can get in.
That's true. Okay, enough of us rambling. Angel City, 9 matches unbeaten in all comps going into this.
Yeah. Although the Current have a pretty good run on, I mean, they've had a pretty good record over that same period of time also.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a tough matchup. What are you expecting, man?
I honestly don't know. I'm very curious to see one. I think I know what we're going to see the Current try and do. But Angel City under Freya Kum loves to really high press, and I don't know that they've done that as much during their stretch of dominance over the last few match weeks. They did not have the possession in that game. They won 2-1 against OL Reign over the weekend. They lost the possession battle 60-40. They looked to counter. They created 2 counter-attacking opportunities, and they scored them. Sounds a little bit like Angel City, but they liked to be very fluid football, back and forth, and they were doing a lot. Whereas, this is still there's a lot of really good talent on that team. Clarice Lebihan started at striker. They have Savannah McCaskill in there, Alyssa Thompson, all good players. Danny Weatherholt's been playing very well. But off the bench, they're able to bring players like June Endo, and Sydney LaRue and Claire Emsley. All of those are really solid players, and I think soon they're going to be integrating Amadine Henry. I mean, she was on the bench for their last game. We're talking one of the better French players over the last generation, one of the best players in the world in the last recent generation of players. So she's yet to make a debut, but she might debut this weekend against the Current. That's a good team. So it'll be, I don't even know. It's funny because we talk about, well, what are the Current going to do with the back line? I don't even know what the Angel City is going to do when they have all their pieces that they would want to start starting. And, I don't think they started a bunch of them per se in that match against OL Reign because they were coming back still off of the World Cup and slowly reintegrating them back to a squad that was doing well. But, they've been able to get out on the counter and be a little bit frustrating defensively. And they've won a lot of these games in this 9-game stretch. They're not blowing people out. They're 1-goal wins. And they've been able to grind out results over the last few weeks. 2-1, 1-1, 1-1, 2-1, 2-1, a scoreless draw, a 2-1 win, a scoreless draw, and a 2-1 win. Really, if you go to their last 11 games, they've been 2-1 matches at the most. And the last 12 games, including the Challenge Cup, every single game has been decided by a goal if it wasn't a tie. So they're playing tight games. They're able to come out on the winning end of them a lot lately. And so it'll be really imperative that I think that the Current finish their chances. The Current are going to create chances. They're going to have more possession. Herr Bloom has been said we want to be a possession team. They said that They're going to try and do that. They're going to create some chances by doing so, that they need to score them. And if they don't score them, then they're going to be looking even further outside of the playoff line. And so I think that's going to be the big key. I think one, finish your chances. Of course, that's a simple soccer thing, but that's the big key for me, because there's going to be chances. You got to finish them. Anything for you that sticks out?
Well, just like a lot of what you were just saying, is they are a very good team, better than their standing. Right now, the NWSL is kind of topsy-turvy in the fact that, probably not the right way to describe it, but every team can be a very good team right now, just depending on any given day situation. But Angel City and Kansas City kind of parallel each other a little bit. Started off poorly in the early season, got better later in the season. And so it's going to be two pretty good teams battling, and it is an absolute. I always hate to use these, but it's an absolute must win for the Current. They might be able to get away with allowing another draw, but they can't do that at home.
No.
They only have a couple games left at home, and they need to add max points at those for damn sure.
Yep. One other thing for me with the Current is just, I think, finding a way to continue to reintegrate Dabinia. In that game against OL Reign, maybe it was a good thing that they didn't seem to be like feeding her as much, just because they've gotten accustomed to kind of playing without her. And for a while there, it was just funnel everything to Dabinia, let her make something happen, which I think is good that they got away from that. But in the same stroke, they've got to find a way to make Dabinia impactful in that moment. And I would be curious to see how they try and do that, because I think she will do it. She'll find a way to get on the ball, but it's going to be about getting her on the ball in the right spaces and the right times. She had a couple of chances later on in that game to finish it off too. She didn't. She had a couple. I think she had a 1v1 with the goalkeeper for Reign, whose name is escaping me, Fallon, Tools Joyce. So had a 1v1 that she put wide. I think there was a couple of opportunities too that didn't get quite put on frame. And so it'll be interesting though, because once they really started to involve her, then they really started to kind of shred Rain for a little bit. And so I think for them, finding a way to keep getting Dabinia involved in the right areas and the right times, where she can be the most lethal, is going to be very paramount to the success of that team.
But not looking at her as the only solution.
Correct.
That was because I know I have commented this on other things, is that you can sometimes hear, addition by subtraction, but she can sometimes be subtraction by addition. She is so good that everybody wants to give her the ball, and that now takes, a Hamilton or a Mace or a Kaiser or a Lowe or somebody not having another chance themselves. And that's when the team's at their best, and that's the soccer they want to play, is you're going to have 3-4 players crash in a box so that you have multiple players that all have an opportunity on that ball. And if you're always looking to get it to Dabinia, then those other players don't make the runs. You don't have the players there, and the chances go down.
Yep.
All right. Anything else we should discuss before we keep this one short?
I think we said it all.
I'm again hoping for a win. They need a win very badly. And because it's even if they don't make the playoffs, it at least keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
But it would be it'll be a tragic fall for not making the playoffs after how they made that good run last year and adding all that talent.
It would be, but sometimes the cookie crumbles the wrong way, and cookie crumbled completely away for a majority of the first part of the year. So
that it did. All right. Thanks for joining, Daniel. And I will see you Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes.
And then we'll have to just hang out with our own families on Sunday.
Something like that.
All right, man. It's good to talk to you, and we are out.